Welcome to Behind the B&B podcast, where we go beyond the bookings and take you inside the real stories, strategies, and struggles behind every Airbnb success. I'm your host, Steph Murphy, and each week we will sit down with real hosts, industry experts, and inspiring guests to uncover what really goes on behind the scenes of short-term rentals. Whether you're just getting started, scaling your property portfolio, or simply love a good story, you'll find practical tips, honest conversations, and a few laughs along the way. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's go behind the B&B. Hi, and welcome to Behind the B&B. I'm with Stephen, all the way from Phoenix, Arizona. Hi, Stephen.
Hello.
So we're going to talk to Stephen, who's actually the founder of Compryo, and he has a 24-unit hotel in Tulum, as well as 4 luxury apartments in Cabo, and then 1 apartment in Mexico City. Did I get that right?
That is correct, yes.
Perfect. So, Stephen, we want to get to know you. People who are going to be watching this, they'd love to know a little bit about your background. What have you done before you got into Airbnb, and then how you got started? So I'll let you share.
Yeah, so most of my life I've been in the food service industry. Started off as a chef, went to culinary school, did that for about 10 years. Started having kids. And so being a chef and having kids, it's just not very conductive to having a good home life. So I started looking for, basically ways to get out. And so I started, started working at a distribution center that focused on distributing, produce, so fruits and vegetables, for those of you who don't know what that is. And so I started working there, I had various titles there, working my way up the ladder, continued to, this was back in Colorado, continued to, progress, and at some point in time, I took a job in Las Vegas. We really never thought we were going to leave. When I was a kid, I moved around a lot with my dad's job. He was in the hotel business, so we kind of, I guess, been in this for a long time, family business. So we moved around a lot, and I really didn't want to move my kids around. I have 2 kids that are grown up now, but so anyways, life is what it is. And I had a really good job in Las Vegas. Went there, was there for a year and a half or so, and then took another job here in Phoenix. So that's how I ended up here. And I was, that company is a $6 billion company. I was running the produce program for them. It was a $440 million a year category. And, had about 30 people under me. Managed the quality assurance, managed sales, managed everything that the category entailed. I think a lot of people that I've talked to in this program, are in the same boat where that gets old really quick, right? Not to say I love to work. That's what I do. I'm just the kind of person where work is really my hobby. It's my life. But I think a lot of people maybe start thinking like, well, if I'm working this hard, why don't I do it for myself? So luckily, I had made some good moves throughout my life financially, and I was in a good position to invest in something. And I was looking to see, if it was going to just be something additional to what I was on my corporate job, just to eventually get out in 10 years or whatever it may be, or was I going to be able to find something where I could completely, just stop what I was doing and just put myself 100% into, so I started looking around. Franchises, other types of opportunities in real estate. I thought about buying properties, but when I came to that thought process, you're very limited on how many properties you can have because of the fact that, you have to put 20% down, and then you're going to be taking out mortgages and all of that. And so when I came across James, on Instagram, I started listening to, his program and the way that he, his methods, and it just really made a lot of sense to me. So I contacted him, and he reached out to me. The team did, and found out more about the program. There was different levels. I know it's changed a little bit now, so I'm not going to speak to as how it is exactly now. But back when I was starting, there was a few different levels, kind of like, yeah, you want to get your feet wet, maybe have one property and kind of like build on that, but you're going to keep your normal job. Or is there was like another level where it's like, okay, you're gonna get a little bit more. You're going to have more than just one or two properties, but this is a long-term goal. Or is it like, are you all in? Are you all in? And you just want to, change your job and just, and really make this be your full-time job. And so I did that. It was called the Mastermind Program. And so I'm still in it now. As I've talked before, it's 18 months now I've been in it.
Yeah.
So my goal was for the first year to really be able to support my family, basically replace my previous income. And so that's what I've been working on, and luckily I can say at this point in time that's where I'm at. So
Yeah, which is incredible. You've achieved that goal that you set out to do. So, how long did it actually take you before you replace your income? Because you were working whilst you were doing the mastermind and trying to start this business up, correct?
I was working while I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And then it's just kind of all serendipity. It all came together at once. At my work, things were not going down the path that I wanted to go. So I kind of spoke with them. We had a mutual separation where luckily they actually gave me a buyout, which helped me be able to have even more savings, to be able to do this full time. So I just went feet first into it, and I said, okay, I made a plan. I said, I told my wife, because of course she's very, I'm the breadwinner. She works as well, but I'm the main breadwinner, and so it's a little worrisome when your husband comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm going to do something completely different." But she was very supportive, still is, and it's incredible. You really need that if you want to do something like this. So I made a plan, and I said, I'm going to try this for this many months because that's how much savings I have. So I kind of made, okay, this is my savings, 6 months.
Okay. Yep.
And so I said, okay, this is my money for me to support myself for these 6 months. And then this is the money aside I have to invest into this. And so I actually ended up taking out a home equity loan to have enough capital to, get to where I am now. So was that a good idea? I don't know. I mean, people have all kinds of opinions on, how you do this, I was kind of just, I didn't know, but I think it was, at the end of the day, I think it was a good idea, and it worked out well for my situation, but I'm not going to say that that's the best situation for everybody.
Yeah. That's it's really stepping out and taking a risk, which is what you did, you know. Would you say that it was calculated risk? Did you feel like were you into the course by then or doing the mastermind by then? Like before you decided to take out that loan,
Yeah. So originally, when I joined the program, I wasn't focused. So, as you mentioned, all my properties are in Mexico. I wasn't really focused like I have to be into Mexico or whatever, So when I first joined the program back in November of 2023, I might have been October, November, somewhere around there. I wasn't really sure what I was gonna do. I was like, am I gonna be in the United States? Would be obviously more convenient. Am I gonna be local here to where I live? Much easier to manage, or am I just gonna like go to Dubai? Where James, had a lot of properties or knew about Dubai, UK. It was an option as well. I had no idea, so I did join the program, but it took me about 3 months or so to really decide what it was, what the path was that I was going to take. So, I would say that really starting this full time, it was in the beginning of 2024 in January. That's when I got my first property. And that's where it kind of like launched me to like just do this full time with a clear path of like clear-ish path of like where I was wanting to go.
So it was after 3 months, and then I'm just thinking about the fact that you said you had 6 months worth of savings. So it was like, oh, okay, after 3 months, you decided this is the direction you're going to take. Right, you've got 3 months of savings left to kind of just really make this work. So, what was the first property? Where was the first property? It was in.
Yeah, and so this is what I tell a lot of the people in the program, and people, even the people who are outside of the program or are interested in the program. It's like, James says it all the time. You're gonna get, you don't know where you're gonna get it. You just really have to like contact everybody. I kind of had an idea of like how to filter out like where the good properties were, but I didn't have a
Mhm.
specific place like in Mexico. I did have a specific goal that I wanted to be in Mexico. Like I said, I had made that decision already, but I didn't know where. I had obviously some places that I knew were either convenient for me to get to from Phoenix, or I knew about, or I knew very touristy. So those were kind of my focus. I started putting out feelers in those areas, mostly in Los Cabos and in Mexico City.
Stop me
Just
there, Stephen, because
hundreds
some
and
people
hundreds.
just to with when you say you're putting feelers out there, how were you doing that?
Yeah. So I mean, um, actually, I could go back. I step back a little bit. One of the things I was doing, back then actually was talking to James in the program. We were, they were still are. James is very interested in Mexico, and so I actually was
Yeah.
kind of like looking at maybe possibly sourcing for something for him. But of course, James is at the level of like multi-units, so I started looking for like bigger projects while I was looking for smaller projects on my own. So the reason I say that is because in Mexico City presented the opportunity for a lot of bigger projects, like blocks of 10 apartments or more at a time.
Yeah, amazing.
So while I was doing that, I found one apartment. It was like a 2 bedroom. I was like, oh, this is nice. It kind of looked like maybe it was already on Airbnb, so I was like, oh, maybe this is a good opportunity. Hundreds of agents that I contacted, and that's basically just going on, the Mexican Zillow. They don't have Zillow in Mexico. They have other websites that are similar, but,
Mhm.
going and finding places that are already for rent, because I thought it would be easier. I just thought, finding a place that's for sale and they're trying to convince an owner that this is what you should do. Finding a place that's already for rent might be easier. So that's what I did. And so I found this little 2 bedroom, and I was just like, hey, let me contact the agent. Out of the hundreds that completely don't understand how there's, or don't even want to talk to you. There's so many reasons, why
Mhm.
agents are opposed, and even owners are opposed to like what we do. But
Mhm.
eventually you learn how to talk through those points. But anyways, I contacted this agent, and you get lucky sometimes, or at least I did, that you find an agent that just gets it, that just
Mhm.
completely understands what you're looking for, and there's no, they're not, they're not against it. They think it's great, and so I contacted this agent. She said, yeah, this 2 bedrooms a nice possibility, but hey, I have this other property, and I this will work perfect for you. And she showed it to me, a 4 bedroom. It's actually a five bedroom, 4 bathrooms, but I don't use one of the bedrooms. But she showed it to me, and I was like, wow, this place is in the perfect area, completely unfurnished, but in the right location. And so I
Okay.
actually bought plane t- bought a plane ticket, and I went and saw it the next day. And so I got there, looked at it, loved it, loved the area, and the agent said, "Hey, just to let you know, I had somebody come and look at it yesterday. They're very interested too. They're thinking about putting a deposit down, but we told them that you were coming, so you have first dibs. But we just want to let you know you got to move fast." I put the deposit down that day. And so that was my first unit. So that's
Okay.
got the ball rolling. It was, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like now that I look back on it, I'm like, I honestly feel like it's crazy, like that I decided to take that type of property on for my first one. It would have been so much easier, like do something local, do something that's already furnished, maybe do something that's already on Airbnb or something. But no, I had to completely furnish the place. I basically moved down there. My wife, she's able to work remote. So she came down for a month and lived with me down there while I was getting the place ready. She had to work during the day, but it was nice to have her support there. And then the building, like I said, the location is great, but unfortunately the building is older. And so there was a lot of like plumbing, electrical type issues. I had to kind of remodel one of the bathrooms because it just wasn't working the way it was. I actually built a custom pool table for it. Yeah, and there, like, the bedrooms are really big, so it wasn't just like a small bedroom, just put a bed in there and a nightstand. It was like, I had some of the bedrooms you could put couch in there, all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was doing. I was just swimming, trying to figure it out, but I knew I had to get it done. Like you said before, I had a timeline, and I'm like, I have to get this done.
Yeah.
So I had to set clear goals for myself to like get to my timelines, hit my deadlines, so that I could get the place listed, so I could start seeing some sort of revenue, because otherwise I was going to be in bad shape.
Yeah. So you said you moved over there for a month. So did it take you that long to get it set up? And was that just the fit out, or was that including getting it listed on Airbnb and getting guests, actually staying while you were still there? Or how did that all work? And also cleaning, did you do it? Or did you have someone?
Yeah, so luckily the place was clean, when I got to it. But like I said, there was a lot of other things to do, like said, plumbing, electricity. My wife was there for a month. I actually went down there January 15th, took possession, and I was there till basically March 15th. When I left, and I felt it was completely ready to go. Had the cleaner in place, had her trained, and so she knew what to do. And then I came back home. Luckily, once you get the place ready, there's no real reason to be there. One of the things, of course, one of the biggest things was pictures, which people find out. It's like the pictures are so important, and I made some mistakes there. I had a family friend that she had a photographer, and he was supposed to be really good, and okay, fine. He came, and he was a good photographer, but he wasn't a real estate photographer, and so he didn't do a good job.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, being ignorant to the this being my first time, I wasn't like sitting there following him around going, I need to make sure this is right. This is perfect. And he was just kind of doing it on his own, even though I was there. I was like doing some other things. And then when the pictures came back, it's like, oh, a towel's crooked, and I'm like, well, I can't use this. And he's like, oh, nobody's going to notice that. I'm like, yes, they are. And it's like, that's a huge deal. Anyways, at the end of the day, I had to find somebody else to take pictures again.
And pay them as
so
well.
There was a lot of,
that's one of the lessons learned.
pay them as well. Yes.
Yep. Been there as well. I can relate to that. Yeah.
So lesson learned. But yeah, so like once I finally got it listed, now of course that you're doing the timeline in your head. You're like, okay, Steven said he's got it 6 months. That he's got enough savings to get there. It didn't work out that way. I had to actually use some of my other savings that I wasn't planning on using. But I said, I kind of felt like, okay, I'm all into this now. I feel confident that, I understand the process now because I took on such a big project to begin with. I had some more opportunities that I was, coming my way in Los Cabos. And so I was like, oh, and they were furnished. And so I was like, oh, I think I can make this happen. Started doing the calculations now that I kind of understood of like, how many units do I need to have at the end of this year to get to my goal of being able to replace my previous salary. And support my family, to the standard that we're used to. And so I kind of figured that part out, and I said, okay, by the end of the year, I need to be here. And so luckily I was able to make that happen. I got, but not with some stumbles along the way.
God.
my first property in Los Cabos. It was my wife was actually down there. We went and saw it. It was furnished. It's a penthouse. I'm not in the best location, which should have been my first red flag. The owner, I was just gonna go see the property, just to go check it out, with an agent, and then all of a sudden the owner was there, and which sometimes is a good thing, sometimes not a good thing. But he started
Yeah.
talking to me about, and I was actually supposed to be seeing his property because he lived at the property. So it was the 45 unit property.
Yeah.
And he lived there. And he said his wife was tired of living there. They want to find a home, and they were moving out. But they wanted to see, they wanted to rent their place. And once I started talking to him, he kind of like the story changed, and like, it just he had another penthouse, and he's like, oh, come look at this one. This one's ready to go. And then I said, all right. So we looked at it, it was really nice, whatever, had some quirks about it, and a couple more red flags. And once we got done with the showing, my wife said, no, I don't have a good feeling about that one. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Has some red flags, whatever. So I
Can you
took a
share
couple
what
days to
those
think
red
about it, and
flags are
I told,
or were? What were those?
yeah, it was the location. The
Yeah.
location was the biggest one. It just wasn't in the right part of town. It was far walk from everything. Like I said, the owner himself, he just seemed like he was going to be difficult to work with.
Mm.
Um, and then even though it was a penthouse and it was nice, had some things on it, like, in a hotel, certain hotels, they have like the bathroom sink like in the room.
Oh yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
instead of like a separate bathroom, the shower was basically in the rooms. There weren't separate, like, closed off. I didn't like that, and I was like, I don't know, that's kind of weird. I was like,
Does that even get past building like regulations? I don't understand that. I, how is that even
well, it's Mexico.
enough said? Yeah.
So I thought, I was just like, that's just kind of weird, But I was like, I don't think a ton of people are going to complain about it. Which actually they didn't end up complaining about it. But
Mm.
anyways, at the end of the day, I said to the agent, I was like, yeah, sorry, this just isn't the right opportunity for me at this time. And she said, okay, no problem, I'll let him know. And the owner called me immediately, and he's like, I thought we were going to work together, and supposedly, there was opportunity for me to take on 28 more units if this one worked out, and blah blah blah. And so, he really like was pushing on me, and I said, all right, if I do this, I'm only going to do 6 months, and we'll see how it goes. And so, he's like, okay, let's do 6 months. And so, um, at least I figured that part out. So I did the 6 months, and just true to my gut feeling, it ended up being a nightmare. I think I didn't have one stay where we didn't have a problem. Either the Wi-Fi was out, the water was out, the electric was out. I could just something every single stay there was an issue. It was a nightmare. I won't get too much into it. But the one good thing is, the silver lining is I got to know Cabo. I got to like know what it takes to like do business down there, know the market and everything. And that same agent, she found the two properties that I have now, and then eventually the other two so now my four properties. So that's the silver lining, because those properties, they are doing great, and my the owners are awesome. So
Oh, that's great. And I love that it came from that same agent. So you obviously built rapport and relationship with his agent for her to basically bring these other apartments to you.
yeah, it's great, because when you find those types of agents, you don't have to do the conversation anymore. You don't have to have that hard conversation of, hey, this is what I do, and try to like overcome those hurdles. They have those conversations for you. So you just,
Yeah.
basically they're only presenting you opportunities. I'm not going to say that that's 100%. She has brought me ones where she's like, this owner is really iffy. I don't want to talk for you. Can you talk to them? But luckily now I'm to the point where it's like, my, my presentation, is pretty buttoned up, and I can speak to what I do pretty easily. So I no longer have problems having those hard conversations with owners.
Yeah, it's good. It's amazing, when you first start and how daunting it can be, especially when you don't have the experience and you're going and you're trying to get that first unit, as opposed to now you're so experienced and you're seasoned in this. And like you said, you're that much more confident. What is it? How long would you say that took you? About 6 months down the track where you felt like you really had it dialed in.
Yeah, yeah. And then of course it really helps when once you start having like properties in your listed, and you can show them something instead of just going, hey, I just started doing this, now I can show them the proof of it, of my concept and that it works. And so that makes it so much easier. Just gives you confidence. The more you know about this business, the easier the conversations get because all the questions they have, you have answers for.
Yeah, that's very true. It's good. That's great. I love that you've pretty much shared like a whole lot of your challenges also within those stories, of attaining those apartments. I know now this 24 unit, because we've kind of talked a little bit about it, that's probably been the biggest challenge, would you say, out of what you've experienced so far? And can you share a bit about that?
Yeah.
How did this opportunity even present itself to you? Was it through the same agent? Or was this something that you sourced yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it ended up being James. We worked with a hotel company in
Mhm.
Cabo, and actually they did a deal with that owner of that place that didn't work out for me.
Mhm.
And so I got to know the people at that hotel company, and they were kind of telling me they're like, hey, if you know any more of these types of deals, if you can find any, let us know. I was really just looking to like be a sourcer for them. And then, so I started reaching out. I had an agent in the Yucatan area. It's really, the state is called Quintana Roo. That's where Cancun and Tulum is, where everybody wants to go. The Riviera Maya, I should say, that's what they call it. And so I had an agent over there that he was like young and really energetic and always trying to get me to do deals. Most of the time, he was trying to get me to buy stuff, and I was like, nah, that's not what I do. But anyways, I threw this out at him. I was like, hey, I'm looking for these hotel type concepts. Also, he found me another one. Like it was more my style, and like when I say my style is like I focus on high end luxury type units. There's many reasons why I do that, but the biggest reason is I never thought about doing a one bedroom. I just really was scared to because I thought one bedroom is going to be for people don't want to pay too much for their room, and so they're probably going to be younger. They're probably not going to take care of it. They're going to be coming in. They're going to be wanting to do one night stays, and then you're going to be doing a lot of cleaning. So I was really kind of like weary of one bedrooms. I was even kind of weary of two bedrooms because my first property was four, and I said, oh, so this is four bedrooms. The type, because of my high, nightly rate at that place, you attract, or you're only going to get a certain type of clientele that can pay that price.
Okay.
And usually those types of people are going to take care of your place more
Mhm.
than, people who for a cheaper, place. So
Yeah.
that was my thought process. And so I never thought about a hotel concept before for me personally. And then also, just to throw in here at that point in time, once I had the 4 units in Cabo, in my unit in Mexico City, I was also looking at like, okay, I basically was kind of out of capital to, do another project on my own, which is what happens. It's normal, but you get to that point, and then I'm like, okay, so now what am I going to do? And I actually found an investor at that point in time. He just reached out to me, actually through social media. He found me somehow, and he reached out to me, and he's like, I'm really interested in doing this. I have some capital, I like Mexico, blah blah blah. And so it was just all came together at the right time. And so
It's amazing.
my agent found me this. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so it's crazy how things happen, but that's the way this business is. It's like you never know. Opportunities always come up when you least expect them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found a place for him. It was a smaller place, more my style. It was just 4 bungalows. In this one place. We were at the point of signing the contract, And but I said, I'm not going to sign a contract on something, but I don't see myself in person. So I went down to Tulum, and I went and saw the place. Once I did see it, I realized it was not viable, because of the location. It was out way too remote. It was in the middle of the jungle. The roads were terrible. It was just, I was like, oh, I can see now why, this place was struggling, because it was already being listed before on Airbnb, and they weren't doing so well.
Yeah.
So I had to turn that one down. But this is a good thing though. Now those red flags, I saw them very clearly, and I was able to make that decision without having any remorse. So I did learn a lot from my previous experiences and with the program, and everything, James's guidance. So I knew exactly. I mean, the investor was upset, the agents were upset, the owners, whatever. Everybody was upset. But I said, I'm not going to get myself again into a project that I know is not going to work out. But
Exactly.
the good news is that at the same time that I was down there, I said, hey, let me take advantage of being down here. And we saw about like 12 properties in like one day. It was just crazy.
That's a
But I
lot.
didn't have a lot of time. Yeah, but I figured, I'm here. I might as well take advantage
Yeah.
of, being here. So we did that. And then when I came back, I started putting together like a presentation for all the properties, for the hotel company. And then at the same time, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, we changed plans, and, we're not really looking to invest into Mexico. I was like, all right, well, I have these properties, what am I going to do with them? So I thought, okay, let me try to shop them out to this investor. So I did, and he was very interested. I kind of nitpicked the ones that I told him. I was like, these are the ones that I really feel have potential. In particular, one of them, which is the one that we have, and because of the location, it's right on the main avenue. I mean, everybody knows that you can see it as soon as you come into town. And I said to him, I said, hey, this is the one I think has the best potential. Um, like I said before, I was very weary. It's 24 studios, so 24 one bedrooms. It just, like I said before, this is like not something I was looking to take on myself ever. But I said, hey, if I can figure this out somehow where I'm not managing the day to day, I think I can, make it work. Just setting it up and managing the operations and maintenance and things like that, no problem. The business side of it, but not managing the listings and all of that. And so we went down that road. Super scary. First time working with an investor. So trying to figure out how to manage that. Got a lot of guidance from James through the program, mastermind. Our monthly calls of like, how do I work with an investor? Because it's for those people who, have never thought about this part before, and which I kind of didn't think about it either, is that, I kind of got into this business so I wouldn't have a boss. So I didn't have to, I could make my own decisions. And then once you start working with an investor, you kind of have a boss again. Right.
True.
Yeah, you have somebody you have to answer to make sure that you're performing the way that you said you were going to perform. So anyways, went down the road. I went down. I saw the place again. We got the contract together. And we ended up signing it. The one thing with these types of hotel style, because it was being run as a hotel 100% before. I don't even think that they listed it on digital platforms before. I think it was just a regular hotel with a reception. They that's the way they always ran it. And so I said, hey, we can run these as individual studios, individual listings, kind of have a different concept. And so when I started figuring it out, but the reason that I thought that this would work really well is because when you look at it and you start breaking down the monthly rent by individual unit, the numbers are crazy, because it's like the property is being rented out as an entire property. But if you look at it as an individual unit, the rent, like I could just tell you, to be honest, per room is only $375 US. So I thought about it and I said, hey, if I rent it for $50 a night, I could 6 nights I've already paid for my rent, and some of my costs, right? So So the numbers made a lot of sense. And so we started going down that road, kind of this new concept that I'm, kind of working on is remote hotel, basically. And I think a lot of hotels are going to this type of concept,
Mhm.
especially after COVID. I don't know if you have had the experience, Stephanie, if you ever gone to like a Hilton, I know does it, or like Sheridan, I think, where you can actually check in on your phone and then you can pick your room. You can check in on your phone and you through their app, and go check in on your phone. And then I just walk up to the door and I just put my phone to the door and it unlocks the door. So like I don't have to
Mm.
talk to anybody the whole time I'm there. Like I can just go in, check out, and without even going to the reception.
Wow, I can't say that I have experienced that, but I mean, it makes sense. Hotels have had to pivot, especially after COVID. So, yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
There's two. I think when you talk about like hotel business or this types of Airbnb business,
Mm.
there's really two different types of people. And I've talked to a lot of people about it, and there really is well defined that there's people who love the hotel concept. They want to go in, they want to be pampered, they want somebody to grab their luggage from the very first moment. They want to, have somebody bring them room service,
Mhm.
all of that type of stuff. That's what they look for when they're going on a vacation, which I completely understand.
Mhm.
Um, and then there's the other people, which I would say I'm one of them. And that's the people who kind of want to do things on their own. For me personally, I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to get there. I want to get into the place. I want it to have a kitchen because we don't want to go out to eat every single night.
Yeah.
I used to be a chef, so I like to cook. So I there's those types of people that want to have the conveniences of having a living room. Those types of things, especially if you're traveling with your family, you want them to be in the same place. I think there's two different types of people with this concept in Tulum. Um, I'm kind of trying to merge those two worlds together, with giving some of the conveniences of a hotel, but not all. And so that's kind of the way we're running it, because um, I don't call it a hotel. I call it a hotel internally, like you and me, we can call it a hotel, but I don't
Mhm.
call it a hotel for the guests. The guests, I don't want them to think that we're going to clean the room every day. I don't want them to think that that we're going to have a reception because we don't. But we do have some of the conveniences of a normal hotel, where we do offer room service. We offer them tours, bike rentals if they want. We do cleanings after every 3 days. So we have some of the conveniences of a hotel, but not all. So
Okay.
totally new concept, and has been a huge challenge because it's just so much more management than expected.
Yeah.
Originally, I was going to do this with a partner. That didn't work out. So right now, I'm completely managing it on my own with my assistant, my virtual assistant. So between him and I, we're managing it. And we were talking about this before you and I, in a previous conversation, is that a lot of these, especially these bigger projects, it's really like 6 months,
Mhm.
before you really get to a point where it's just like running on its own, and
Yeah.
you're not, I'm still trying to get it going, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We're at like 4 or 5 months, but I see things getting to the point where we wanted them to be.
Yeah. That's good. And yeah, obviously there's still, yeah, operationally it's a huge project to take on. And that does take time, to figure things out and to get things running smoothly. But you're getting bookings, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we kind of had to we had to kind of start over a little bit. We had to like relist it and reconfigure everything. But we are, right now we're very excited about, our first real like opportunity to see if this is going to work was over New Year's holiday, because there's like a very well, it's just a popular spot for that time of year. Anyways, there in Tulum, that whole
Mhm.
area. But also there's a really big music festival, electronic music festival there. So we were booked solid for like 5 nights, 20-40 units filled. And we actually had to turn people down. Like people were showing up. They're like, hey, and we were charging a really good rate. And so my investor was like, oh my gosh, this place is a gold mine. So we knew like then we're like, okay, this can work. but then, like I said, we had some stumbles and we had to like kind of relaunch and get it going again. And so now we're looking at coming up here on Easter week. We're really, really excited because in Mexico, it's a big holiday for them down there. And so, and also for people traveling, it's a big holiday. So now we're starting to see, and the good thing is we're getting like longer bookings. We just got a 25-night booking. We got another 18-night booking. So those are the kinds of things that really keep you going because you can't just rely. We get a lot of, yes, because right. The other thing about this place compared to my other properties is here because of the location and just the type of property it is. I have to allow last minute bookings. So people can book like all the way till 10 p.m. They can book, and it happens. They book until 10 p.m. and so we have to get them into the place. The good thing is like everything's pretty automated. Other than like we have to program their smart locks. We program the last 4 digits of their phone number to get into the main gate and get into their room. But all the messages and such are all automated. But yeah, there's a lot of that. So you can't live off of last minute bookings. You have to like fill the calendar with a halfway long, previous list bookings, and then the rest you can kind of get along with like, okay, yeah, we got some extra rooms open. We can do those last minute, those last minute reservations. But
that's incredible. So you've got the app and everything is all set up. People can book using this Compryo app.
So it's when you start like learning a lot about the platforms, the different platforms. Yeah, of course, like as James teaches in the program, booking direct is always like the way to go, right? Because you don't pay for all those service fees, Airbnb, Booking.com. But the way that this property is, eventually we want to get people moving over there. But right now I run a lot of promotions. So the good thing about Booking.com, they're not super user friendly all the time, but they let you have one listing for all of the rooms. So even though they're individual rooms, and that's the way we list them, each room is very unique, very different. If people go on my website, they can check it out. Each room has its own style, own, decor. So we don't try to just, it's not like a normal hotel where you're just like, oh, it's either a queen room or a king room or a twin room. No, you can't just, the pictures are all individual. So you can't just like sell somebody on one room and put them in another room because they're going to notice, that it's a different room. Luckily on Booking.com, you can list it all as one listing and it shows you all the rooms just on that one listing. So that's the one I really try to promote. And then also most of our travelers that come through are Europeans. And in Europe, I don't know, a lot of people don't know, but like in Europe, people don't use Airbnb so much. They really use Booking.com. And so I really push Booking. So if people go to my property and they want to book now, because that happens a lot, they just walk-ups. Like I said, we don't have a reception, but I do have a QR code throughout the properties, outside, inside, that they can just scan the QR code, takes them right to the Booking.com listing, and they can book right there.
Amazing. Yeah. That's genius. QR codes is just, everyone scans a QR code these days. And what better way to run your business than actually have those up and around, and it just simplifies it. That's genius. That's great. And so I still can't believe it's just you and your VA running this right now. And then obviously you've got your company.
I get the rest there. That's the difference. That's the biggest difference. First of all, compared to my other units, all of them are in one property, right? So that kind of helps because if something is wrong with one of them, like let's say the toilet's clogged, but it's 10 o'clock at night and we don't have anybody there to go fix it, I just move them to another room. That makes it a lot easier if there's one open. But we just move them to another room. You just hit the nail on the head there with this property. Obviously, it warrants having full-time cleaners. So we have 2 full-time cleaners. We also have my maintenance guy. He's not a full-time maintenance guy just for this property. He manages other properties, which is fine. But anytime there's an emergency or there's anything big to fix, he's the guy I call. He goes and fixes it. One of my cleaners, he's also very, knows how to do some basic maintenance stuff. things. If I like I just mentioned, clogged toilet, I just let him know. He goes and he fixes that for me. So that's the part that makes it a lot more manageable. Like you said, just me and my VA, we focus mostly on the communication with the guests. Everything else is kind of managed on its own with the cleaners, the maintenance person.
As you said, it's all in one building, so it does allow you to have those full-time cleaners, that full-time team to really help carry out all the operational side and the day-to-day. Do they sometimes deal with guests if guests are requesting anything, and are they the ones to go and see to that?
That's the thing. That this is a part that I didn't really know how this was going to work out. But of course it happens because they're there. Like they're there. However, we just mentioned the QR codes. I also put QR codes that goes to our WhatsApp group. So my cleaners direct them. They say, hey, talk to the owners or these guys, and they scan the code, the WhatsApp code, and they can get in touch with us right there. Of course, sometimes they just share my information and they call us or whatever. But we try to direct them to not have to talk to the cleaners about things. But really, honestly, like that part hasn't been a ton of an issue. I don't want to put the cleaners in a situation where they're like with a tough guest that is like not happy with something. I don't want to put them in the situation where they like talking directly to them about it to solve it. We've trained them. Anytime a guest needs something specific, please direct them to talk to us, which is what they do. And they've been really good at it. We've had really good guests. So it hasn't been, I was super, super scared at the beginning about how this is all going to go. And, I had to think about security too. Like, I mean, people coming in and out and how's this all going to work, blah, 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 and everything. So many things to think about. But I've been lucky enough to tell you that it's gone a lot better than I expected. People are very respectful. A lot of them love the fact that they don't have to go to a reception. They can just walk in. A lot of them are traveling. They get there very late at night and they just want to go into their room. They don't want to stop, talk to somebody, pay for it, show their ID. I do ask for them to send us their IDs ahead of time so that we know that the person is who they are. But everybody's been really nice, very happy. And a lot of the people that are like staying with us, and I think this is just normal for that area, but a lot of them aren't sure what their next move is going to be. Like, am I going to stay here in Tulum or am I going to go somewhere else? They're kind of just traveling around Mexico, checking things out. And the nice thing to see is that we have a huge amount of our guests stay longer. They stay one night. They say, oh, I love this place. Can I stay another night? Can I stay another night? Yeah. So it really shows you that people appreciate what we're doing. We really focus, even though the place is not, it's not luxury like my other places are. I mean, the place is nice, but it's not the same. I still always just taking that from the program from James, all the teachings. I still made it as luxurious as we possibly could. And what I mean by that is luxury linens. I didn't cheap out on the linens. I didn't cheap out on, the accommodations, the amenities. We didn't cheap out on those things, and people really appreciate that. It's more than what they expected for the price point that we're renting for.
Yeah, I think, gosh, everything that you shared, it would just be so helpful for anyone out there who's thinking of, maybe taking on a block of units. If they've got maybe some Airbnbs and they're thinking they want to scale up. I think you've touched on so many points of interest and questions that people would have about it. The only other thing I would probably want to ask you about is, say something happens, security measures that you've got in place. Is that something you've considered? I imagine you have. I was going to ask, are the cameras set up? Because it is Tulum, like people go there. I mean, I've never been, but you said there was like a festival. So I'm thinking, oh, people are going to get a little bit rowdy. They're at a festival. There's a bit of drinking. There's a bit of drunkenness going. Like how is that manageable? If anyone's thinking.
Yeah, that was a huge concern. Of course, I thought exactly what you were thinking. But the way the property is configured is that there's a main gate that can be closed. So we had to do some modifications to it to make it secure. But I also installed a smart lock there. And so what we do is we program the code for the main gate and the code for their room to be the same code. Right? So each individual guest has an individual code to get into the main gate. So we're not like reusing codes that can be shared. At least mostly. And then of course those codes get erased once they leave. But so that's kind of our first measure. But as you said, of course, we have security cameras everywhere. The building already came with a security cam system, but I added some Ring cams where I think like you can actually communicate with people there. You can turn on the lights. You can sound a siren. All of those things to kind of like ward off people, which unfortunately we've had to use. It's never been a bad situation, but just like we've seen, like my assistant, he kind of like checks it out at night and makes sure everything looks okay, especially before he goes to bed. And so if he sees something suspicious, he'll turn on the lights for one of the cameras at the main gate, and it usually scares people off, like, oh wow, somebody's watching.
Good. It's a good.
So those are the security measures we have in place. And then of course, if something is like, we've had situations where we've had to think about, like, what if a guest doesn't want to leave? What if a guest is being rowdy or something like that? We have those security measures in place. We have personnel that can come to any sort of emergency at any point in time. So we've done as much as we possibly can to secure the building, because of course that's the guest safety is the biggest concern we have. I wanted to touch base on also though the part of this hotel style concept that people, if they haven't thought about it before, there's the other advantages about this concept is because you're running it basically is a hotel. What we've done is we've licensed it as a hotel. So now if any sort of restrictions get put in place against short-term rentals, it doesn't apply to us because we're a hotel. Right. So we don't ever have to worry about like the government coming and saying, hey, we don't want, we're actually on the other side now. So we are the ones that they're trying to protect. So you license yourself as a hotel. Yes, it's an additional cost, of course. But once you get that done, now you don't have to ever worry about any sort of regulations or restrictions being put in place.
It's a great way to just mitigate risk, and it's often what you got to think of in every single way, every circumstance, every situation. How can you do that? So that's brilliant. That's really, really interesting. So gosh, thank you, Stephen, for sharing that. I think it's been so insightful. I said to you when we did our pre-interview, it gives us a reason to come to Tulum. I think James has been saying to me for a while, he's like, we need to go to Mexico. We need to go meet Stephen and go and check things out over there. As you mentioned before, he is still interested in Mexico. So we just need to figure out how we're going to get over there at some point. But I think, everything you've shared has just been incredible. So thank you so much. I had a couple of questions pop into my head because I've been putting it out there on social media that we're starting this podcast, and I've asked some people to send some questions in. And so I thought, I wonder if we could kind of close out our podcast with maybe asking a couple of these questions that we've got from people who are showing some interest. So I'm going to ask you one of them now. It's, let's see. It was one about, I remember what it was. When it comes to setting up an Airbnb business, do you source the property first or your team? So like your cleaning team, or how would you go about that?
That was another huge concern that I had when I started doing this business, was like the cleaning team, maintenance people. How is that even going to work? I might know Mexico. I mean, luckily I do speak Spanish, so that helps. But I was like, I don't know anybody down there. And then also, here in the United States, and I know in Europe and other parts, there's a lot of like platforms you can go to like find cleaners, and things like that. Yeah, in Mexico you can use like Facebook groups and things like that. It helps, but to find people, like local people that can come and clean, it seemed like a big challenge. So no, I always look for the property first, and like I said, I'll figure the rest out once I get there. But it's amazing, like how lucky I have, and I think that this just is natural in this business. Like it happens. Like you worry so much about that part, but it really shouldn't be your main concern. I think what you should focus on is finding the right property, and I think 99% of the time, the rest of it will figure itself out. There might be some hiccups. Maybe the first cleaner didn't work out, but then because you have some more contacts at that point, you found another cleaner. The one thing that helps a lot is you just have to be open to talk to people about things, ask questions to everybody. All of my cleaners, I'm not going to get into the details, but like all of my cleaners have come from word of mouth. So that. But I wouldn't have ever known anything if I didn't show interest, if I didn't ask questions, if I didn't talk, to people about things like, hey, who does your cleaning for you? How about this? Like, I've done a little bit of this before, but when you're going to go to a new place, and you're going to maybe go see some properties, why don't you stay at an Airbnb and then maybe either figure out how to talk to the cleaner that cleans that Airbnb, or talk to the owner of that Airbnb and say, hey, this place does your cleaner does an awesome job. Who is she? Could I, talk to her? Is she looking to take on any more business, or whatever, find the ways to make that happen. As far as maintenance people go, that one's a little bit easier because you can just like, find professional services or whatever, but to have a go-to person, what I've really done is because there's always little things. I know this more than I do, but there's always little things. It's not like a maintenance issue, but it's like, oh, this broke. I need another one. Who's gonna go get that for you if you're not there? I can't just run to the store and get something. So you really, my maids, my cleaners. Sorry, I don't like to call them maids. My cleaners, they are kind of my managers too. If I need them to do something, somebody locks the safe without putting their code in. She has the key, she goes and she unlocks the safe for me. Of course I give them, I compensate them for that. Luckily in Mexico that's not a huge amount of money, but you need somebody like that. And but like I said, finding them, really there's a lot of ways to find them. I would never focus on that part first. And unless you maybe, like you said, I do see a situation where if you were taking on a 24 unit place, you would try to like figure out that, okay, how's this going to work? Who's going to clean it for me? Because that's full-time people versus, more contract type work.
Yeah, I think that was a great answer, because I agree with you. I think you need to find the property first. I think that's how we did it as well. We found it and we're like, okay, yep, it's secured. All right. Yep. It's in a great location. That's everything. You got to do all your market research and all that first anyway, find the right location, ensure that Airbnb, that property is actually going to work. And then you'll always find there's always ways around finding cleaners and maintenance people. And I think that was some really great tips as well that you've given. You can just find them Facebook groups even. And just in Australia, they've got a platform, I'm sure it's like this around the world, that are specifically tailored to cleaners. Something called Airtasker here as well, where you can even go and post a job, and then you have all these people respond to that job. There's so many ways to find your team, but yeah, agreed. Property first, and then you just figure it out. You can figure it out. Yeah. So Stephen, I want to say thank you so much. You've just brought such incredible insight, hopefully inspiration. I'm sure to me, what you are doing and what you've done, what you've achieved is so inspirational. To replace your income within a year of you having started up this business, taking the risks that you did, and it's really, really paid off for you. And I'm so what's the word I'm looking for? I guess just really, I almost want to say proud. I am proud, and on behalf of James, I know that He's really proud of you, as someone who's been mentoring you and he's really been on the journey with you. You've achieved such incredible feats. And yeah, I just want to say well done. And also really, really appreciate you coming onto this podcast and sharing openly, your story, your background, what you did before and how you got started and the challenges you faced and the wins as well. And it's just only going to get better. And so in closing, I'm going to actually ask, what's next for you, or is the focus just on this hotel? I mean, you said it's not a hotel. What are you actually calling it?
Call them boutique studios.
Boutique Studios, yeah. Of course, we're going to put all the images up. We'll add that in. We'll add the link in as well. So you guys watching who are interested, you can go and check that out and perhaps book your next holiday in Tulum at the Boutique Studio. Yeah, what's sort of next for you in the pipeline?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. Thank you very much for the kind words. And also, just, not that I haven't said it to him before, thank you, James, for, helping me along this path, because I definitely couldn't have done it without him in the program and the people in the program. Honestly, like I love all the people in the program. It's great to have people to support you, when you have questions or things. I love interacting with all the people in the program. So he's really created an amazing community. And so I can't wait to see, continue grow. So, but yeah, for me next, I want to continue. This project in Tulum is getting to the point where now I can kind of, let go a little bit and start focusing on something else. I have some things in the works, that are more personal things that I'm kind of focusing on that kind of in the same type of business. But really at the end of the day, I want to, get a couple more properties of my own, so that I can take my wife away from her job, and she can do this with me. She's really into, she's helped me a lot with the design. She's very good at the customer service side. So I would really like to, have her disconnect from her normal job and be able to do this with me full time. So that's my end goal for this year, is to get to that point, so that she can do this all the time.
Again, Stephen, thank you so much. And if you are interested in checking out Stephen's properties, he's got a website. We're going to put that up. Stephen, you can just say what that is now as well in closing. So www.
Yeah, it's Comprayo, www.comprayo.mx, comprayo.mx.
And we'll definitely put that in as well. So thank you again. Thank you for watching. And this has been Behind the B&B with Stephanie Murphy.